Welcome to Channel AMake, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Carl Young, your online YouTube visa consultant. Are you interested about migrate to Australia? Why don't you consider to subscribe to my channel and turn on a little bell on the side, so once we have all the updates and news, you'll be the first one of getting all the insight. Now in this video over this weekend, I would like to take an overview of how the skill migration will be for the upcoming 2021 and 2022 financial year. Now if you're not familiar with the financial year in Australia, it starts from 1st July up to 30th of June. So I don't know why it's not starting from 1st of January, but it's starting from mid-year and going through a mid-year over the next year, which is going to be 2022. So at this point in time, obviously a lot of people has been waiting, pending. I'm getting enormous numbers of inquiries asking, do you think I will be invited? Do you think this EOI points will be sufficient enough? I've been waiting for 6 months. I've been waiting for 18 months. Things like this obviously has been going on for a while due to obviously the pandemic, and bless the citizen and people who live in Melbourne, because currently there has been clusters being identified in Melbourne. So obviously if you're in Melbourne, stay safe and hopefully everything will be fine. So obviously we this year 2021 and last year 2020, we as human race in this world has experienced a humongous something that no one had ever expected, and that actually struck the whole system of immigration in Australia, and not just in Australia, but it's everywhere, every country around the world, and causing backlog, delays, and things like that. And not to involve into geopolitical issues there, it gets more and more complicated, but we still have that wish and hope for the upcoming year. As if you have been following my videos, noticing that every time in the past, looking at the history of Australia's economy, every time Australian economy facing issues, immigration policy will become one key that the government of Australia will require to use it as a weapon to tackle the economy issue. So in the past, we noticed that the government had been throwing a lot of money for the job keepers and all these kind of stuff, the same as what they done in USA, but we need to come back and say, look, if the government spending is like that much, how can they make it back? Especially the exports and business-wise, the international education things has already been down. Not mentioning tourism industry as well. So immigration policy, as you can see from the past few months, there's been numbers of different articles and news, and even the government of Australia, the Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison, has came out and said there's going to be an overhaul of the immigration policy where it's possible to return from the financial the financial report and the prediction of productivity prediction that we can see from the government itself. It's going to return into a big Australia. It looks like it for the next 3 to 5 years. The numbers of required permanent migration policies is going to be going up to more than 200,000 from my previous news article that I've been shared with you guys. So in this video, I would like to take a little bit of overview. What are the skill migration pathway and categories that we are expecting for the upcoming 2021 and 2022. Now, bear in mind, if you subscribe to my channel, once all these nitty-gritty detail criteria came in from different states, I'll have all that announced for you. So let's take up the first one. The first one is one of the most commonly asked category is the independent skill migration. Now, before we start all this, there's obviously a skill migration in a sense of a young skill workers. So for instance, age from 20 to about 45, and now these people can access to a skill independent and state nomination and the regional state skill visa These are the top three. I'm gonna go through all of them. And now there's also another category of what they call business skill visa, which generally that we're saying is the investor visa. I'll take a little bit of overview of this as well, and obviously the well-renowned GTI Global Talent Visa, which I'm gonna go through with you guys as well. So if you're interested in migrating to Australia, you make sure you watch it till the end of this video. Now let's have a look. The first one, the independent skilled or skill independent, whichever way you want to say it. It's generally known as the subclass 189, and people say 189 visa. It's a point test system. So if you see the point test system, you will know that the minimum score required for this type of visa is 65. So we'll take a little bit of going through the little bit of detail of the table that we're gonna see through the points table. If you want more detail, I did have a video specifically talking about this in the past. So 65 points, you'll be able to at this point of time, because last year's pandemic, there has been strictly invitation wise only for onshore applicants or people already in Australia by means. So it's getting very hard because they since the last budget they have cut half of the quota of the independent skill. They rather wish this kind of visa to be state sponsored, state nominated. So we'll move to the next one that we're going to see later on. Now the eligibility, obviously you might notice that all the skill type of visa nowadays, if we go back probably 7 or 8 to 10 years ago, it's not invitation based. You lodge it, you get it. But every single skill based visa nowadays is invitation based. You need to get invited. If you're not getting invited, you won't be able to lodge a visa. So how do you get invited? You need to submit your expression of interest, putting all your background in there, and then obviously you wait for the government to invite you. That's basically how the system will work. Now I've talked about this. It's very vital that if you're in skill visa, you're required to get skill assessment. You have to get that done. Okay, skill assessment is always the first step to actually verify your qualification and skill and experiences is actually valid and deemed to be known and equivalent to the Australian standards. So you need to get that done whichever your occupation is in. And if you want to go through this, there's an age limitation. You have to be 45 or younger. If you're 45 or over, I'm sorry, this visa will not you won't be invited. And obviously there's a 65 points I had mentioned. You need to have a minimum of English language of competence level. Now competence level will be equivalent to IELTS score of 6. Okay, so that's basically it. And I'm gonna jump into a little bit of the point calculator here to actually show you how that will work. But for detail, obviously refer to the previous video that we have done here. So it's a fairly simple web page, which you will come in here. As you can see, that's all the skill visa that I'm gonna go through with you today. And you pick on 189, and they will start asking for your age, and you go through all these questions. You might end up with the score that's estimated, but that's from your view. Make sure a lot of things still require to go through skill assessment, because a lot of people come to me and say, look, I've get my estimation, I'm about 75 or about 80 or about 90 points, and my question always this, have you done your skill assessment? They say, no, I haven't done it. And once they conducted and going through a procedure or skill assessment, they came back with negative result, or they came back with a positive result, but their work experiences were only deemed to be on possibly 1 year. It's not expected of what they had expected before. Obviously, then the points will be dropped down. So make sure you get your skill assessment done. Otherwise, the whatever you estimated, or even I estimated or predicted, might be wrong. So get your skill assessment done. That's the most important thing. Now moving onwards, it's the skill nominated visa. So who nominates you? The state government, state or territory government of Australia. So that includes Northern Territory, Queensland, ACT, Australia Capital Territory, Victoria, New South Wales, what else? South Australia, Western Australia, and Tasmania. So that's all the state government that you might refer. Then I'm not gonna go through the detail there because every single state, they have all their own criteria and different skill occupation lists. It's very complicated. I've got a viewer came to me on YouTube and said, look, I've got my EOI done, so what do I do? How do I get state nominated? I say, wow, that's a very good question. Now, which state are you preferring? So he or she doesn't have any clue. I said, look, you really need to go through each state and go into their detail in order to get that done. Or perhaps you might need to get a professional advice for a migration agent, migration lawyer, whoever you prefer. You find, and you probably can inquire a number of different and see how that goes, because every state had their own different criteria and different way of processing stuff. For instance, okay, if you want to go to Queensland, you cannot submit. You cannot click on the submission of your EOI. If you click on it and if they are not open, it's deemed invalid. They won't take it. Okay, so you need to wait and watch when the state of Queensland says, right, today is the 29th of May, we're open. Then at that point in time, you can actually submit your EOI. Now, it's a very different approach than the government of Victoria. Victoria go, right, don't worry about it, put your EOI in. Now, you need to put an ROI within the Victoria's state government website. That's another hell of a procedure, and that's for Victoria. And New South Wales is similar, but New South Wales do have a lot of different regions. There's about 9 or 10 or 12. I can't remember all of them, and all of their criteria is a little bit different, and all of their skill occupation list is different as well. So it's enormous. It's a little bit crazy. So you really need to get a specialist or expert to actually get advice on that. Now, apart from the differences around state, the visa of 190 subclass 190 skill nominated operates is the same as 189 visa, apart from you're required to get a state nomination before you can get invitation from the immigration. So you need to see the only difference between the previous page. Now let's shrink all that. Here we go. Okay, and this page is this button here. You need to be nominated by the state of all, either of these state in order to actually apply. And other than that, everything else is the same. The only differences is that once you get nominated by the state, you get that extra 5 points from that state, apart from the differences between the independent, where you don't get any additional point from nomination. So you have to be really, really bright. Now, moving onwards is the subclass 491. It's so-called the Skilled Work Regional Provisional Visa. Now, the introduction of this visa, you may notice the subclass doesn't start with 1. It previously used 189 and the other one's 190. Generally, subclass start with number 1. It's more preferred and more privileged, should I say, because you get permanent residencies treatment there. Now, 491 is a little bit different, although they do provide you some and partial of the right that you can actually enjoy, like the permanent resident, for example, Medicare, things like that. However, as you can see, that the only difference here is that it includes regional. Now, you have to be in regional Australia. That means excluding Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. So basically, all the other places are so-called regional. The only way that the government wish to promote this is that they will actually hopefully to move the future migrants into regional area not still coming back to the big city of Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, although it's preferred to stay in a large suburban area for a lot of young people. But obviously, as the governments and nations growth, they will like the population to move elsewhere, as Australia is the 6th largest continent in the world, and that's their policy. So now 491, it goes through the same process as well. You get points, and you need to get nominated. And as you can see, there's a little bit of differences here. It says sponsored, so you can also be sponsored by your relative. Now, I've done a specific video on this one as well. You might want to refer that. Basically, that easier to explain is that you have a relative who is currently long reside and stay and live in regional Australia, then they can sponsor you and you actually get that visa there. So that's an easy way to go. And the age here, let's have a read. It's a little bit different. You must be age under 45 to be invited, and you can still apply for a visa if you turn 45 after we invite you to apply. If you turn 45 after you submit your EOI but before you invited, you will not be receive an invite. So again, it has to be 45 or below, and you still need to get skill assessment done. So now, how the state and the territory government approach 491 visa, they have a lot of different ways. Now, for example, you can actually be very entrepreneurial. You have a business, you have a small business, you operate a small business, you purchase a business. For example, in Queensland, regional Queensland, you're allowed to actually get 491 visa as well. It doesn't have to be as traditional skilled migrant as to be. It's very innovative, and how the South Australian government approach with this 491 is also very innovative as well. They given extra points for people who had long resided in South Australia or who had graduated with high GPA marks in the higher education sector. So there's all different ways. Now, I can imagine in the upcoming July, every state and territory government will have their own ways of treating 491 visa. As now 491, as you can see, it will be the largest a chunk of all this skilled migrant where the government will actually allocate them to. So 491 will be one way to go. Now, the only thing is 491 doesn't get you into permanent residency straight away, but you do enjoy the Medicare that you can have access through all the Centrelink in Australia. And after you get 491, you get 5 years of visa. You're required to stay in regional Australia for 3 years, work for 3 years. Now, the requirement for this is your annual salary or annual wage income to be above 53,900 for 3 years. Then you will be deemed to be eligible to become and transfer into a permanent residency visa under the subclass 191. I did have a video done for this one, specifically talking about how this will go. Okay, now moving forward is the Business Innovation and Investment Provisional Visa subclass 188. Now, talking about this, previously there has been another business type visa under subclass 132, which will be, and now it's already closed, be removed out of the whole immigration regulation of Australia by ways of getting more contribution of investors to be in Australia, stay there, do their business or invest their stuff in there rather than getting a permanent residency straight away. So again, it will work similarly to a 491. You get 5 years of visa, you access to Medicare and things like that, and within the 5 years, you're required to demonstrate 3 years or whichever visa that you're required to do. So there are a couple of things I'm going to go through. There's a business innovation stream where you're required to build a business in Australia. I believe the requirement, the coming up from July, will be a little bit a little bit more required than the previous, when the current one. The current one required to invest in 200,000 Australian dollars. Now they may require to invest more, and the annual turnover is required to be higher than 400k. That's what I suspect that it will, or predict that it will be, and operate for 3 years. Now currently you're required to operate 2 years and show no loss, and you're able to transfer into permanent residence. Now the upcoming one from July will require to do 3 years. Now same as investor stream, if you have followed my previous announcement by the from the news announced by the Minister of Immigration, Alex Hawke, basically saying the investor stream will bump it up for the required of original, the current one with 1.5 million to 2.5 now, and the currently the 1.5 goes to government bond, state government bond. The upcoming one from July will be 2.5 split into half in the bond, and the other half go into a VC or a startup fund to initiate and help small and medium-sized businesses. Now, currently the investor visa and the investor stream require to have that fund stay there for 4 years in order to transfer into a permanent resident. Now, the upcoming one is predicted and said it will only require 3 years. So dropping from 4 years to 3 years. I'm not too sure that it's confirmed yet, but we'll see how that will go. So make sure you subscribe to my channel so you get the most updated information there. Now, the SIV, Significant Investor Stream, will stay there as well. So everything stays the same, but whether or not you require to the fund will mature in 3 years, or perhaps stay the same with the current system where the fund required to mature in 4 years. Again, that's a question mark. We require to get that verified when the time comes. Now, in regards to the amount of investment of 5 million Australian dollars, that stays the same. The structure of investment will be a little bit twisted, not much of differences. So I'll say this one, if they do drop from 4 years maturity to 3 years, SIV will be the biggest winner for this upcoming change of the visa scheme. Now, all the other ones, the PIV will be removed. There's no more of that. And we are still waiting for the entrepreneurial stream because, as you might notice, under subclass 491, a lot of state and territory government has already proposed utilizing subclass 491 to introduce entrepreneurial business ventures for the young migrants. How this 188 entrepreneurial stream will differ from what the 491 actually request and require, we are still waiting for a verification in the coming weeks. So stay tuned with my channel there. Now, finally, let's move into the global talent independent. Now, this is the most valuable and excited visa that the government of Australia has announced. And noticing that after operating for about a year, I noticed that the USA is also looking to copy this kind of scheme, and also I think UK is trying to do that too. So what does this do? It's still on the skill, but you need to show that a much better, high yield, exceptional talent. Now that exceptional talent is required to be, I've done a specific video on this. It has to be an international recognized achievement. So generally saying, people in the high-tech, agri-tech, fintech, space sector, defense sector, all these high-tech sector. Now they included tourism and infrastructure, but you need to require to show that you are equipped with this so-called international recognized talent. For example, if you're in a transportation field and you are the expert of tunnel drilling, for instance, okay, and there's only a few of you guys in the world, obviously you'll meet this requirement. Another requirement is that you require to show that your current annual income to be above 153,000, I believe, and $600. And also you need to have Australian nominators who are in the field of your expertise and who can actually attest your skill and qualifications and experiences. So obviously I've done a specific video on explaining all this. There's a series of video on all the regulation and law on this one, so you might want to refer to that one. So if you're in this kind of field, you're an expert in your specific field, and you know that in the world there's only a few of you guys. For example, semiconductors, there's a lot of researchers have done previously. They focus and specialize in semiconductors, and this is advanced manufacturing, and they get this visa. And the beauty of this is you get permanent residency straight away, and the processing time, wow, it's amazing. It only takes less than 3 months. Now all the other previous visas will take up to 6 to probably 18 to 20 months, but this one, global talent independent, is a beauty. They get you in 3 months, but you have to be that high capacity personnel who has that sort of talent to actually be enjoined in this kind of visa. Okay, now so this is the video for this week, and basically giving you an overview of how the upcoming financial year, as a nation of Australia, all the category of their skill visas will be ranked. So if you're interested in migrating to Australia, these visas, watch out for all their upcoming criteria. They may meet, you may meet their requirement and fit for their criteria. So anyway, probably see you in Australia, and hope everyone to have a safe upcoming month of 2021. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.